How do you feel about child abuse?
Well, I feel that it's morally wrong to abuse a child. It's hard to understand why people would abuse their children, but I do know that there are some reasons that maybe people might feel inhibited financially. It might be something mentally wrong with the parent, and it might be a child that has a problem and the parent is not aware, not knowing how to handle the problem. They could abuse the kid, but it's never the kid's fault when they're being abused, and sometimes the parent, depending on their situation, how they were raised or what have you, and they could get into some abuse, but I don't think it's acceptable at all to abuse a child.
Okay. Are you aware of any agencies to help abused or neglected children?
Well, not specifically, other than state welfare system, the city welfare system. Some churches might have some programs, but I'm not aware of any specifically. If I needed to find an agency, I'm sure that they're available and that it wouldn't be that much trouble to find them. But in that, I've never had the problem. I've never had to look for them, but I am aware of social agencies in the city, state social agencies and what have you, child welfare and protection agencies, even the police, they would come in and they would know where to direct you, if you had that problem.
Okay. What are some of the warning signs of a child being abused?
Well, a child could be withdrawn at school. Sometimes there are visible marks on the child. The child could be sometimes behaviorally maladjusted because of abuse, and sometimes the kid is just very, very withdrawn, not attentive in school, maybe too sleepy, won't wake up in class and whatever. Some of these could be signs that could let you know that the child being abused. And sometimes if you observe the kid in the company or the presence of other parent, sometimes you can see some disconnect with the child and the parent.
Okay. If you think that a child may be being abused at home, what should you do?
Well, you should call, first you should call the school board to make sure that you're within your rights or what have you. And the school board, should have specific guidelines as to what they should do if you observe a child being abused in your class. Sometimes as a teacher, you perhaps could call an agency yourself, but sometimes you might be stepping outside of your jurisdiction, so to be protected by the law. There are legal liabilities in all of this, and you have to be aware of that. So the best thing to do as a teacher is to make sure that you let your principal know. The principal can get in touch with the superintendent or what have you, find out the proper agency to report this to.
Okay. Do you think that child abuse is a problem in today's society?
Oh, very definitely. I think that more children are being abused in a wide variety of ways, and some of it's undetected. We don't know. I would imagine it's more apparent than we realize. Especially when you look at the behavior of some of the kids in school. And then sometimes abuse could be in ways there's no fault. I think it's almost abusive if a parent is incarcerated. Sometimes a parent might have too many children, will lead to abuse and stuff like that because there's not enough food, not enough of anything. And so, sometimes the parent is frustrated. Sometimes the parents are not intending to abuse the kid, but because of the pressures on them, a kid could end up in an abused kind of situation.
Okay. Can you name 3 types of child abuse?
Yeah, isolation. Sometimes these are severe cases where a kid could be incarcerated in their own home. denial of material stuff, denial of social activities, and then you have the physical abuse, and sometimes kids are intimidated just with words. You can abuse a kid the way you talk to them and how you treat them, and could be some abuse. So sometimes some of them it's that neglect could be just a real. It's hard to detect. But if you neglect a child, they're not getting enough attention, they're not getting enough love or nurturing, could be a, form of abuse, that could lead into some more serious problems if it's undetected or unattended to.
Okay, and how does child abuse affect a child's behavior?
Well, it depends upon the child, I guess. It depends upon the environment that the child finds himself in. Some of them will act out. Some of them will perhaps not involve themselves. They get to be very, very introverted, isolated, and sometimes kids will do physical harm to themselves, like they mark their bodies or just they might do some things like that. They might fight a lot because they might want to treat other kids like they're being treated, and they'll pass that on to other kids, and I think that sometimes these bullying kids, kids that bully, a lot of those kids I think probably are being abused or neglected, and they act out, and so and I'm sure that there are some other things they do, but just right off the bat, I would think that a kid that's being abused will be very, very quiet and introverted. And some of them, to overcome that, will, bully other kids that's less, not as large as they are, not as smart as they are. Perhaps they, in their mind, don't look as good as them, or, just a lot of reasons, could come out in the kid, but abuse could bring out very, very negative behaviors in the kid. Now, a kid that's introverted and doesn't say anything, that's very, very wrong, these kinds it might hurt them later on in life because they're gonna miss a lot of stuff. And if you're not socially inclined or not able to interact with people and whatever, it could affect you, for the rest of your life, really, if it's not addressed and not attended to.
Okay, and lastly, what do you think has to happen for child abuse to stop being such a problem that it is?
Ooh, I don't know, because that's a lot of things could happen. Certainly some things have to happen in the society, like job equity, educational equity. Because a lot of parents might abuse now. I'm thinking they might abuse their kids because of some of the frustrations that they have themselves, not being able to work, not being able to have enough. Maybe they've missed some opportunities and got themselves in a bad situation. Maybe they've had too many kids, not intending to have them, for just a lot of reasons. So some of the things we can do to prevent that is, try to make sure that people have access to jobs, access to education. Just thinking about it right now, poverty, could create a lot of abuse. And then on the other side, an abundance of wealth could be abused too, because in just the most recent case, with this kid over in Texas, this affluenza situation where this kid killed these kids, he's drunk, and 6 kids get killed, another 2 that's hurt real bad, and this kid gets off. Well, I think that child, the system is right, it's not really the child's fault, but at the same time, he's got to be responsible for his actions. But to give a kid too much too soon could be abuse, because it leaves the kids with an attitude that I can do what I want to do and what have you, and have this reckless kind of behavior and ultimately end up in a bad situation. So, you know, having too much could be abuse, and having too little could be abuse. You know, and if society would, the social system, if they would pay more attention, you know, to that, some of it could be prevented. And then at the same time, you know, I personally believe in corporal punishment. You know, I really do. At an early age, you know, I'm not talking about abuse. You know, my parents punished us. I mean, they whipped you, even at school. You know, but I don't think I don't see it as abuse. You know, I never saw a kid at my school abused. You know, I mean, you get a few licks or what have you, understand? But I think abuse is when you're marking the kid up and making them bleed and denying them food and that, you know, that kind of thing. But if you just, for correction, you know, you just a little swat or whatever, you know, I don't think that's abuse. But I don't like it, but I think it's necessary, you know, I think it helps, yeah.